The courtroom was filled with a suffocating silence, with only the sound of the judge's gavel ringing out, marking the end of the trial. John Miller, a police officer with 20 years of service, sat motionless in handcuffs. His gaze was fixed on the floor, not out of anger or despair, but because of the unwavering belief that he was completely innocent. However, the verdict had been delivered, and there was no way to change it. He was convicted, but the most painful part wasn't the sentence itself. It was the separation from his only loyal companion. Max, the canine dog he had considered an indispensable friend throughout his years of service. Max, the German Shepherd, had always been by his side in the most dangerous situations. Not just a partner in work, Max was also a great source of comfort when John's life was in turmoil. In the courtroom, the silence enveloped everything. But for John, the moment he had to part with Max was something he could not accept. "Your Honor," his voice trembled, breaking the tense silence. "Before I am taken away, please allow me one last request. I just want to say goodbye to Max." The entire courtroom fell silent. All eyes turned toward him, but the judge, though stern, eventually nodded in agreement. He ordered the officers to unlock John's handcuffs for 3 minutes, allowing him the chance to see Max one last time. When Max was released, the dog immediately ran toward John, its claws echoing on the hard stone floor. John knelt and pulled Max into his arms, tears streaming down his face. "I'm sorry, buddy," he whispered. "I won't be able to protect you anymore." But just as it seemed they were having their peaceful moment, Max suddenly started barking loudly, rushing toward John's coat. The dog's nose began sniffing frantically. The officers quickly moved in, checking John's coat. Something fell out of the pocket with a sharp clink. It was a recording device. The entire courtroom went still, every gaze fixed on the small recording device. John couldn't believe his eyes. Could this be the evidence he had been waiting for? His blood boiled as the recording device played a familiar voice. It was the voice of someone he had trusted all these years. His superior, Captain David Smith. This evidence was not just John's salvation, but also the revelation of a ruthless conspiracy he had been unaware of. The verdict was overturned, but John's fight was just beginning. With Max and his loyal team members by his side, he was determined to uncover the entire truth about those who had wronged him. The courtroom was enveloped in stunned silence, all eyes fixed on Jack. Despite the stern atmosphere, the judge finally nodded in agreement with his request. He ordered the officers to release Jack's handcuffs for 3 minutes, allowing him a final chance to fulfill his last wish. The officers complied and released Scout. Once Scout was free, the dog immediately ran towards Jack, its claws clattering against the cold stone floor. Jack, unable to contain his emotions, knelt and embraced Scout. Tears silently streamed down his face. "I'm sorry, buddy," he choked, his voice filled with pain. "I won't be able to protect you anymore." In these final moments between Jack and Scout, it seemed as if their bond would soothe the agony Jack had endured. But just as he thought they had shared a peaceful farewell, something unexpected happened. Scout suddenly stopped, its ears pricked up, and began barking fiercely as if sensing something unusual. The dog rushed toward Jack's coat, its nose eagerly sniffing as if searching for something important. Jack was taken aback, unsure of what was happening. His heart began to race as he observed Scout's unusual behavior. The officers quickly approached, and one of them began to examine Jack's coat. The entire courtroom watched intently, no one daring to look away. A clear clink rang out, and a small object fell from Jack's pocket. It was a recording device. The air in the courtroom became tense, everyone holding their breath. Jack stared at the small recorder, his heart pounding in his chest. Could this be the evidence I've been waiting for? He wondered silently. The scene before him was almost unbelievable. In the final moments of his freedom, Jack never imagined that a recording device could change everything. His eyes were fixed on the recorder, knowing that with a single press of a button, everything could shift.
The courtroom, from the judge to the attendants, was in confusion and tension. The prosecutor, standing nearby, couldn't believe what was happening. The judge stared at the recorder and then gestured for the officers to play the device. The room seemed to freeze in a moment of stillness as everyone held their breath in anticipation. As the sound began to emit from the recorder, a voice clearly and powerfully rang out. "Everything is set. No one can doubt Turner's innocence. Follow the plan.
The voice, Jack immediately recognized, belonged to someone he had always trusted, the one who had stood by him through all these years, Captain Carl Stevens. The truth hit Jack like a sledgehammer. Captain Stevens, whom he had considered his closest friend, was the one who had orchestrated everything, manipulating events to make him bear the blame for a crime he hadn't committed. Never in his life had Jack imagined that the person he had trusted, who had fought for justice alongside him, was the mastermind behind this entire conspiracy. The courtroom erupted in chaos. The prosecutor tried to speak, but his voice trembled, unable to offer any justification for what had just unfolded. The judge turned his gaze toward the prosecutor, his face changing. "We'll have to review everything," he said, his voice firm and stern. A strange but powerful feeling began to rise within Jack. He no longer felt alone. The truth had finally come to light, and although things were still complicated, he knew he could fight back. This was not just a battle to reclaim his freedom. It was a fight for justice and truth for himself and for all those who had been wronged. The courtroom was no longer just a place to decide the fate of one person. It had become a gateway to a new hope. Jack, with Scout by his side, would not stop until all the guilty parties paid for what they had done. But now, he faced even greater challenges, as the truth had been exposed, and the real battle was just beginning. Jack's heart raced as he looked down at Scout, the loyal dog still sitting beside him, its eyes filled with unwavering loyalty. "Thank you, Scout," Jack whispered. "We will fight for justice, not just for me, but for all those who have been deceived and betrayed." At that moment, something in Scout's gaze gave Jack the sense that, no matter how difficult the battle ahead would be, they would never give up. Jack's story of betrayal and the fight for justice had only just begun. The recorder suddenly emitted a sound, the words clearly ringing out, causing the atmosphere in the courtroom to become suffocating. "Today, no one can doubt Carter's innocence. Proceed immediately." The voice was unmistakably familiar. Michael immediately recognized it. It was the voice of Captain Daniel Grant, someone he had always trusted as a mentor and a companion throughout his years in the police force. The shock and surprise left Michael speechless. He looked toward the prosecutor, who was trying to explain and justify the situation but couldn't convince anyone. The entire room fell silent, all eyes focused on the judge, who immediately ordered the argument to stop. The truth was as clear as day. This was a carefully orchestrated conspiracy to frame him. The judge slammed his gavel and declared that the verdict would be overturned. Michael felt a strange sense of relief. But at the same time, he knew this story wasn't over yet. It had only just begun. The fight to uncover the truth had just started. He couldn't stop being exonerated. Michael needed to uncover who was behind this conspiracy and expose the long-standing corruption network within the police department. Together with Sarah Mitchell, a longtime colleague and close friend, Michael began a thorough investigation into the hidden secrets within the police force. Sarah, who had helped Michael through many challenges, remained steadfast by his side. She was not just a colleague, she was a friend who was always ready to assist when needed. With the help of Scout, his loyal canine dog, they began following the trail of the corrupt individuals, delving into dark and dangerous paths that no one else dared to walk. One night, while reviewing the files, Sarah stumbled upon a list. The names on the list weren't just police officers, but also politicians and notorious criminals. Each name was linked to illegal payments and shady dealings between the police and criminal organizations. This further revealed the scale of the corruption network they were trying to expose. With Scout's help, they continued searching for crucial evidence. With its keen instincts and ability to sense unusual occurrences, the K9 led them to a cold case from years ago. There, they found important documents that had been hidden, possibly the key to unlocking the secrets behind the case. These documents painted a complete picture of illegal activities within the police force, exposing fraudulent schemes that had been carefully concealed for years. The evidence that Sarah and Michael uncovered was not just proof against those in power. It opened a new perspective on corruption, showing connections between police officers and criminal organizations, as well as the manipulation of the legal system to cover up larger crimes. Each piece of evidence was like a puzzle piece in a picture filled with crimes and betrayals, revealing how those in power within the police force had abused their positions to profit and protect the wrongdoers. However, the journey to uncover the truth was not easy. Michael and Sarah faced many challenges, from finding missing evidence to dealing with those who wanted to stop their investigation. This corruption network was not limited to police officers but extended beyond the force, linking with powerful criminals. The investigation gradually became more complex and dangerous. Those in the police force, people Michael had once trusted, were doing everything they could to prevent the truth from being revealed. Threats began to surface, but Michael and Sarah remained determined to persevere. They continued to dig deeper into the corruption network, not only for Michael's justice, but for all the innocent victims who had been harmed in the process. With perseverance and fearlessness, they kept collecting more important documents and information, proving that this corruption was not limited to a few individuals. It was part of a larger system where everyone was connected to protect their interests. This showed that those in power not only abused their positions, but also tried to cover up the serious crimes they had committed. Finally, as all the evidence came to light, Michael and Sarah realized that their battle didn't end with exposing the corruption within the police department. Still, they had to face even stronger enemies, the ones who had manipulated the entire system. But despite the dangers, Michael and Sarah would not give up. They had come too far to turn back. With Scout's help, they found crucial details in the records of a cold case from many years ago. From there, everything began to make sense, and they had all the necessary evidence to expose the truth about those who had abused their power and caused injustice. In the end, the truth prevailed, and justice was restored. Michael and Sarah's story is not just about uncovering the truth, but also about perseverance, loyalty, and the power of friendship in the fight against injustice. Sarah and Michael could not stop. They understood that bringing the truth to light was the only way to break the corruption network, the forces manipulating their lives and countless other innocent people's lives. Sarah, with her perseverance and strength, stood firmly by Michael's side, not only for personal justice, but also for their responsibility to society. Together with Scout, the loyal companion, they were determined to continue the investigation until the truth was exposed. Nothing could stop them. One evening, while they were in a small room reviewing the documents they had found, they were suddenly attacked. Unknown assailants, certainly agents of those corrupt individuals trying to hide the truth, stormed in to stop their investigation. The punches and threats couldn't make them back down. Scout, with its protective instincts and absolute loyalty to Michael, charged at the attackers, not hesitating to confront them to protect its owner. In that tense and dangerous situation, Michael didn't panic. He recalled everything they had been through, from the times he was pushed to the brink to facing challenges that seemed impossible to overcome. With Scout's support, he successfully dealt with the attackers, helping them escape from the dangerous situation. But that was just a part of the long journey ahead of them. After surviving the attack, they continued to delve deeper into the important records and documents they had collected. These details opened the door to the truth, revealing the ones behind the case. Those who had used their power to manipulate and falsify evidence. As a result, the inevitable exposure caused the entire corruption network to collapse. Arrests were made everywhere, from those in high power within the police force to those involved outside. The truth about Captain Harding and his accomplices was finally brought to light. All secrets were exposed, and the perpetrators could no longer hide their crimes. Those who had exploited the public's trust and the protection of the government finally had to pay the price.